Representative Reed.
Here.
Representative Stalker.
Present.
Representative Stevenson. Here. Representative Tate.
Here.
Representative Thomas.
Present.
Representative Tipton. And Chairman Heath.
Here,
We have a quorum.
we have a quorum. I have a list here of all of our members with an asterisk by the ones that are new, and I'll just call your name and let you introduce yourself. And then if I miss somebody, be sure and let me know. But let's just start with an alphabetical order. Rep. Chad All.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Do I have 30 minutes or so?
How about 30 seconds?
30 seconds, all right. State Representative Chad Alm, the 79th District in Lexington. My district represents the University of Kentucky, including the College of Agriculture there at UK. I represent most of the neighborhoods just south of the University of Kentucky. Kind of looks like a piece of pizza, starting with UK and getting wider towards the bottom. Actually grew up on a farm in Philpott, Kentucky. Was a former FFA officer with several other members of this committee, so I'm excited to serve.
Thank you. We're glad to have you. Representative Mike Kleins.
Good morning, Mike Kleins from District 68, which is half of Campbell County. My grandparents were farmers, and I grew up working for a couple farmers, Alan Sider and Gary Turner, and I'm happy to be on the Agriculture Committee.
We're happy to have you. Welcome, Representative Amy Neighbors.
Amy Neighbors, I represent the 21st House District, which includes Metcalfe, Cumberland, Monroe, and Adair counties. My background is in long-term care. I was the administrator of my local nursing home for 22 years, a position that I retired from last January. I myself am not a farmer, but I have plenty of those in my family and very happy to be on the Ag Committee.
We're happy to have you, Representative Sarah Stalker.
Good morning. I'm Representative Sarah Stalker, and I represent the 34th District. I am one of many representatives out of Jefferson County. My background is not in agriculture, but I'm excited to see what I can learn to help folks across Kentucky. My background primarily is in the nonprofit sector, and with a focus on also early childhood and foster care. Thank you.
Thank you. Glad to have you. And Representative Hale is not new to the legislature. He was on Ag Committee when he first came, and then he was off for a while, and now we're glad to have you back. David, you want to say hello?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative David Hale from the 74th District. I was on this committee once before. I'm not really sure how come I left, but I'm glad to be back. Off for a few years, but I really like agriculture. I still operate a beef cattle operation in Menifee County and love farming and been in it all my life. And I'm really pleased and honored to be back on the Agriculture Committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Good to have you back. We'll get right into our business. Some of our members have another committee they need to be in at 9 o'clock, so I think we can take care of our two bills by then, and then we'll have a presentation on HempWood. So we'll start with House Bill 116. Representative Rayburn, if you'll introduce yourself for the record and let your guest introduce herself, we'll start.
Representative Felicia Rayburn. I've got two guests here with me.
Got it now. I'm Alan Bryant, and I serve as the president of the Kentucky Association of Conservation Districts.
My name is Shane Wells. I'm a farmer from Butler County, and I'm the past president of the Kentucky Association of Conservation Districts.
Welcome. Good to have you guys here today. So, Felicia, the floor is yours. Representative Rayburn.
Good morning, and thank you, Chairman and members of this committee, for allowing me the opportunity to present House Bill 116 before you today. This bill basically tackles two issues. Primarily, the biggest issue that it tackles is it requires candidates seeking the office of Soil Conservation Officer to at least be the minimum age of 18 years old. Also, before we get started, I've got a committee sub.
Motion on the sub.
We have a motion and second on the sub. Questions? Representative Graham.
Can you explain what the sub is about?
So the committee sub sets that minimum age of 18 years old in order to run for soil conservation officer.
So the bill as it drafted was 21, and the
That's-
committee sub changes it to 18.
Yes, that's
the only
correct.
change. So, we have a motion and a
Thank you.
second. You're welcome. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. And committee sub passes.
Thank you. As I said, it sets that minimum age to 18. It also addresses, I'll let one of my visitors here go into further detail, but it goes into how the conservation districts submit their list of names to serve on the Soil and Water Commission as well. Thank you.
Yes, if I may, this bill would actually change the way the Kentucky Association of Conservation Districts submits names to the for appointment on the Soil and Water Commission. This would simply make it just more efficient, and it'll be similar to the way that we make appointments to the nature preserves as well as the Kentucky Ag Water Quality Board.
Sorry about that. If there's no other questions, Representative Pratt, do you have a question?
Question, so you moved it, what was the age limit before?
Before, there was no age limit. And actually, it was the only position in the state that I could find with the Secretary of State's office that didn't have an age minimum at all.
So why are we setting an age limit then?
Well, that's a great question. I feel like, honestly, this position manages taxpayer funds. And it's in my opinion, and I believe, to be fiscally responsible, the person should be of age to manage those taxpayer funds.
Again, well, the reason I brought this question up, realize in Scott County, we elected a young man at age 17 to serve on that board, and the feedback I got from his fellow board members was he did a great job. So my question is, why are we doing this now? Again, I'm just trying to figure out why we're going to 18.
Sure. I believe, and based on some research that I've done, these conservation districts were created back in the 70s, if I'm not mistaken.
Actually, back in the 40s.
Back in the 40s. And at that time, there were no age minimums set to run for the boards. So I don't think it was something that was thought about during that time. I'm aware of the situation over in Scott County. In fact, there was another gentleman that was elected in Logan County just recently. If I'm not mistaken, he was age 16, didn't even have his driver's license, in fact, campaigned for himself. I think someone told me his mom drove him around to campaign, and he won. I think the ambition to run for public office is great when you're doing that. But in order to manage public taxpayer funds, I do believe you should be of age 18 to manage those funds. And this bill in no way is to target those individuals. This bill is just to ensure that we are protecting taxpayer funds to ensure they are managed correctly.
Motion on the bill.
We have a motion and a second. We still have some more discussion. Alan, do you want to add any more to what Representative Rayburn was saying?
Yes, if I may. To be a supervisor, we really want somebody that's going to be passionate about conservation. That's one part of it. We also want somebody that's going to have a little bit of financial experience because we are spending taxpayer dollars, and it kind of takes both. So my organization is in favor of setting a minimum age limit, and we're comfortable with the age of 18. So I think that's a good standard to have. And there are other ways that our youth could participate in with conservation districts. There's Envirothon teams, junior boards as well, and also there's a lot of conservation districts that heavily support FFA as well. So there are some opportunities out there for them, and we don't want to discourage their participation and passion for conservation, but we really feel like we need to set a minimum age limit.
Thank you. I have a question or comment from Representative All.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Rayburn, if I'm reading this line 26 on page 2 correctly, there is I'm going to call it the grandfather clause for people who are already elected under that age. What is the theory or thought that people who have already ran and they're under 18, it's okay for them to continue serving, but people in the future would not be okay?
Yeah, so that's correct. For the individuals that I've already mentioned, they would be grandfathered in. This bill would not impact them. They can continue to serve their conservation districts. That's correct.
Any other questions? Okay, let me get you, Representative Stalker, sorry.
That's okay.
Still learning names.
Good morning, Representative Rayburn. Can you tell me what is the budget that this individual oversees? The budget amount?
They all vary. It could vary from typical budgets for some of the smaller districts might be 30 to 40,000 to several hundred thousands. It just depends. The larger counties usually have larger budgets.
Are there any other questions or comments? No, we will proceed to vote.
Representative All,
Aye.
Representative Callaway, Representative Kleins,
Aye.
Representative Dixon, Representative Pfister,
Aye.
Representative Graham,
Aye.
Representative Hale,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative King,
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Cook,
Explain my vote. I'm a yes today. I have some questions about this and concerns. Talking with Representative Pratt, I mean, you're paying taxes at that age if you have a job. I just want to give this more consideration, but I will vote yes to get it get it to the floor.
Representative McPherson,
Yes.
Representative Neighbors,
Yes.
Representative Pollock,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes, can I explain my vote?
Yes.
I'm voting yes to get out of committee day, but we need to have further discussion on this. Because again, if you're paying taxes at 15, and you do, if you got a job, I'm not too sure that they aren't financially already getting an induction. So I'll be yes today, but we need to have further discussion before I'll be a yes on the floor of the House. Thank you.
Thank you. We need to back up to Representative Dixon.
Yes, I'd like to record a yes vote and explain my.
Okay.
I kind of agree with my colleagues. I think that we always encourage youth to get involved in agriculture and soul. I think it's a good bill, but I think we might could look at the age requirement and lowering it a little bit with individuals at 15, 16 taking jobs, paying taxes. I mean, I would hate to do anything that would deter them from being involved in their community or getting involved in these soil districts. So,
Representative Rayburn,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Stalker,
Yes.
Representative Stevenson, Representative Tate,
Yes.
Representative Thomas,
Aye.
Representative Tipton, and Chair Heath.
Yes. So the bill passes with favorable expression. Same two should pass on the House floor. And I would like to comment, we're all about getting together and talking some more. I'm fine with that. While we're at it, we need to do some research. I've been told that there are statutes out there that require a certain age to handle taxpayer funds, and it was also driving this bill. Do you know, Alan, or if it?
I do not know of that
Okay.
statute. I've looked and I personally could not find them.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move on to House Bill 76. Thank you, guys. Welcome, Representative Reed, and we'll let you introduce yourself for the record, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Brannon Reed, represent the 24th House District. Today I bring before you all HB 76. Mr. Chairman, there is a committee sub, and I move on the committee sub.
We have a motion and a second, and Representative Graham.
I'm sorry. If you can explain what the committee sub is. so
Yes,
that
sir.
the-
Representative Graham, the committee sub, line 15 adds 4-H, National 4-H Week.
I just wanted that to be heard by
Absolutely.
the public. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Reed. Continue.
Need a vote.
I'm sorry. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of the committee sub signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay. Committee is sub adopted. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now the committee subs in front of us. I just want to let everyone know that is day 10 of the 2023 session. I have not filed one resolution. So this is for the last 6 years, Mr. Chairman, as I've attended this body and started in 2017, we have done a series of agriculture-related resolutions ranging from National Agriculture Month, National Soybean Month, National Beef Month, National Dairy Month, National Poultry Month, National Pork Month, FFA Week, the week of George Washington's birthday. We are now adding a 4-H Week and National Ag Day. And I know the ag staff, this is probably their favorite day, that they don't have to keep up with my resolutions, because we had a concept of how about we just run a bill and permanently put this in statute. So that's all this bill does. And this is HB 76 and all those wonderful days. If anybody ever has any questions about these days or what they do, there is 6 years of testimony that has been before this table, and I urge you to go back and look at all that wonderful testimony. But we are at the peak where we can permanently put these items in statute. Thank you. All right.
Thank you, Representative Reed. We had a motion and a second on the bill. Are there any questions or comments before we take the vote? Seeing none, we will proceed to vote.
Representative All,
Aye.
Representative Callaway, Representative Kleins,
Yes.
Representative Dixon, Representative Pfister,
Yes.
Representative Graham, Representative Hale,
Yes.
Representative Hart,
Yes.
Representative King,
Yes, ma'am. And may I comment at the end of the vote or now?
Now it's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Representative, for bringing this to my attention and that of this chair. Would you be up to considering an entry for August, being the farmers markets? Just kind of brew on that, and maybe we can talk about that before you present it to the Senate.
Yeah, we're open to any agricultural day in this bill. If it's outside the agriculture scope, I wouldn't really want it in this bill, but anything agriculture related, absolutely.
Yes, well, I noticed we don't have an entry for August, and that's when
Yes, ma'am.
most of the harvest is coming in, so maybe we can talk about that later. But
Absolutely.
yes, ma'am, to the vote for today. Thank you.
Representative Cook,
Despite being no equine or cervid, I'll vote yes.
Mr. Chairman, I will remark that filing deadline is next Wednesday. I've run my 6 years of resolutions, so we're all open.
Thank you.
Representative McPherson,
Yes.
Representative Neighbors,
Yes.
Representative Pollock,
Yes.
Representative Pratt,
Yes.
Representative Rayburn,
Yes.
Representative Reed,
Yes.
Representative Stalker,
Yes.
Representative Stevenson, Representative Tate,
Yes.
Representative Thomas,
Aye.
Representative Tipton, and Chairman Heath.
Yes.
It passes.
Bill passes with favorable expression. Thank you, Representative Reed, for bringing that. And I need to do a little bit of housekeeping here. We still have another presentation to go, but we're going to lose a few of our members to another committee. As in the past, this committee has a 24-hour posting requirement for subs and amendments. We'll continue that. And then if any of our members have guests here, you're welcome. We'll pause long enough to introduce those real quick before we go to our next item. And I see none, so we'd like to bring our guests to the table for HempWood. And Representative Dean Brannon, you're welcome to come to the table too if you like. You've been a part of this operation. Okay, he's going to pass out some souvenirs. I don't think you have to report these to ethics.
I got to fill out that form today. That's it. I know. Better late than never. That ain't too complicated, is it? I have my CPA.
Thank you. I'm gonna need more of this to cover.
I know it. Put this all together and we can snap it together.
So, gentlemen, I'll let you introduce yourself for the record. Make sure the green light is lit up on your mic, and we'll have you on record, and the floor is yours. I think you've got everybody's curiosity.
There you go. Tony Brannon, former dean of the Hudson School of Agriculture at Murray State, recently retired.
Greg Wilson. I'm the founder of HempWood and kind of the inventor of this product.
Welcome. Who's going first?
I'd just like to introduce and then let the man talk here. You know, in the history of Kentucky, you know the place that hemp has played, and you know the recent after the Farm Bill of 2014 and 2018, what's happened, and you know majority of that is in the CBD area. However, often overlooked is the very, very important and rising fiber hemp operation. And we're so fortunate to have Greg, who has persevered and continued to do that in really the best kept secret in probably the United States, but he's the one and only for this. And so it's a pleasure to introduce and to be here with Greg.
Well, thank you, Dr. Brannon. He's the one who drugged me to Kentucky, actually from China when I first called him in 2017, asking about where hemp actually grew. So my background, I'm an engineer, I have an MBA, and a serial entrepreneur. So I invent stuff, start a business, and then when it becomes corporate, I kind of get out of the way, but still maintain some ownership of it, go on to the next one. So I was one of the guys who invented bamboo flooring. Back in college in 2003, I wrote an algorithm that turns a plant fiber into a wood composite. So I make rectangular logs out of fast-growing plant fibers for a living. 20 years later, my wife, who is Chinese, and we were actually, I believe, in this room when the governor's committee brings in new executives or new businesses into the state, my wife said, yes, we can move to Kentucky. Because before that, we were in Hangzhou, China, making bamboo flooring. And she saw Woodford Reserve, she saw Keeneland, and then we had dinner that night at the governor's mansion. So those programs for bringing businesses in do work. But working with Murray State University, our adhesive is developed on the campus there. UK actually has some classrooms that are being made with HempWood that was grown on UK campus, turned into HempWood in Murray, Kentucky, and now going into sustainability offices, now going into some classrooms, and potentially rebuilding Princeton, where the buildings there got knocked over by the tornado a year ago. So what we're doing is the only person or only company in the world that's making HempWood. And we use hemp stalks that are grown right here in Kentucky. Every acre of fiber and grain hemp in the state that was grown last year came to our factory because there's not much out there. And then we take a soy-based glue, stealing the proteins from the soy flour, which is a byproduct after they press the oil out of it, to reinforce the cell structure of the woody core in the center of the hemp. Then we dry it out, compress it together, and bake it in an oven like a loaf of bread, and it turns into a 6x6 log. And if you go on YouTube, if you go on Instagram, or nowadays TikTok, where millions of people watch the videos, you can see where we're making these HempWood logs. That's factory number 1, 12 employees. We work 6 days a week, 7 a.m., 5 p.m., all of my team is there. And actually, most of our supervisory and management staff is 25 years old or younger and came from Murray State University Ag School. Our first intern is now the plant manager. Our second intern is now the plant manager in plant number 2, which is 4 miles down the road, where we turn these logs, we cut them, we lay them up on West Virginia poplar, pure bond plywood that uses that same soy-based technology, and we turn it into flooring, furniture, and cabinetry. That mill also has 12 people. We have 4 people in sales. We have 1 right in Lexington. We have Alyssa. She came from Murray State University. I actually called Dr. Brannon and said, give me your best communication student. And now she's in charge of our marketing. So it's really being grown right here. It's this crazy little idea that's actually working. And we've outlasted all of these different things that have occurred. The hemp industry collapsed. Then COVID happened. The federal government took money out of our bank account because our equipment that had an exemption directly from the White House was stuck in port and missed the exemption window. I had to sell my personal assets, but we kept going. My right-hand man that built the place with us, he died of COVID. I had to learn how to give a eulogy. Strongest guy I ever met, somehow I got him, and we're still going. Now we have all of the world kind of looking at what we're doing, trying to figure this out, because we filed our patents in the US, in Canada, the European Union, and Australia. And so not only do we have face-grade hardwood like this that has no VOCs, that turns our waste into our energy, so we're the only certified carbon-negative flooring out there, because all the offcuts of the hemp gets ground up, gets put into a bioburner that's made right here in Kentucky, heats a fluid, goes to our ovens, kilns, dryers, and building, circles back, gets reheated again, and it spits out biochar, which is then used as a potash replacement for planting hemp the next year, or if we can, we sell it to organic farmers or organic gardeners. So my wife and I were not farmers before this, we're manufacturers. Somehow Dr. Brannon turned us into farmers, and she just sent me a text message and said we had our first calf this morning while I'm up here. So it's been quite a trip. We are doing the ag tech scenario. It's the feel-good story. You have a no VOC product because we're using soy instead of formaldehyde. My lungs are personally wrecked from working with formaldehyde in China for 14 years, making bamboo flooring. And so the real scientific achievement of this is the chemistry in the soy-based glue, because hemp is a direct replacement in this process for bamboo. But you can do it in America. You can pay your farmers. You can pay your people fair, where we have all these people graduating college in Murray, and very often they're going back to where they came from. Now they're buying houses in the community. We had even Alyssa, who's our communications. She graduated last May. Everything you see about HempWood out there is a 22-year-old who bought a house the week before she graduated college. So it's putting those opportunities in a little place in the world that not too many people look at. And just kind of thanking Dr. Brannon, who roped us in, who got us to do this in Western Kentucky. And it simply was, he answered the phone and he said, that sounds crazy, but it might work. And the first time I came to visit, flying over from China, he actually pointed out and said, right here is a building we have on the West Farm you can get started in. And here's Congressman Comer. He'll try to figure out how you can get around those tariffs, because if you got that big of a tariff on equipment, it doesn't make sense to set up. He introduced me to Professor Miller, who's in the chemistry department there, and he is an absolute magician with figuring this stuff out, because now we're starting to move into structural hempwood. We got a patent approved on it. We got a trademark on OHB, oriented hemp board, which we do have trademarks on the word and the logo hempwood that you see around. We're trying to figure out a non-formaldehyde binder, a plant-based binder, because this hempwood you see here, that's 11% soy flour. And we're trying to figure out how to do that structurally. And the Kentucky Soybean Board has been sponsoring some of the research at the school. And the United Soybean Board has been sponsoring some of it. But the problem is hemp doesn't have any sort of support. The only way that we get people to grow hemp is I personally know them. I'm sitting in the duck blind with them and say, if it goes wrong and you write the real number of what you spent, I'll make sure a check's paying that so you don't lose. If it goes right, your contract's $200 a ton. And if you get 3 tons, you make a little money. If you get 4 tons, you do fairly well. There's no sort of support for it. The insurance aspect of it is minimal, if at all. And it's still trying to get figured out, even with Dr. Brannon planting the first hemp in the United States since it became legal again. And that's actually how I found him. I was just looking on the Chinese equivalent of Google, and it had a picture of him planting hemp and saying it used to grow in Kentucky, so it'll grow here again. And that was kind of the fundamental of, we have 3 parts of our business. You've got growing, making, and selling. And as a small business, you can only do 2. And the growing part of it needs to become something that the market does, that farmers want to put in as a rotation. It does get kids interested. I know I've heard Dr. Brannon say that greater than 80% of the incoming students at Murray State had checked a box on their questionnaire saying they were interested in hemp. And one of the number one things we hear from woodworkers that are buying our wood is, my grandson told me about this HempWood thing, so we bought some materials so we can get in the shop together. And it's kind of bringing together the generational aspect of farming, of woodworking, because it's new. Does it perform better in some aspects? Does it perform worse in some aspects too? I'll admit that. But the idea of something new and something local that people can get behind helps my team get through all these complicated aspects. So what we're trying to figure out here, and the reason Dr. Brannon brought me here, he's probably better at speaking about that side, is how to get hemp growing in the state regularly, accepted. How could that be supported? Not by giving money to us. I don't want any charity from anybody. Send it to the university, have the university teach people how to grow it, put it in research programs, get it out there so I'm buying from the market and signing contracts rather than being 100% liable and having teams that have to go out and essentially rent land to plant it on that farm. I'd like to have the farmers growing it.
He's really been a great success in a very troubling time as he went through here. I would like to clarify one thing, Mr. Chairman. He said that he called, and that based on that first call, we had thousands of people call after we planted that first hemp. We had hundreds that called back the second time, but nobody called back the 100th time except Greg. So he's hard to say no to. But we are pleased to have him in Murray and Callaway County as an employer and as somebody that's trying to carve a niche in a very tough market.
Yes, thank you for your presentation. It's been very informative. I knew some of this because I've been to your place for some open houses, and I've heard you talk before. Glad to hear you present before the entire committee, because then they can take it back home with them. We have some individuals that either have questions or comment. We'll start with Representative McPherson.
Thank you for your presentation today. So what is the harvest procedure? I mean, right now, if you're harvesting, you're putting it in a barn, drying it down. Is it the same? Is it similar?
So you can use a lot of the same equipment from hay. We call it hay on hard mode. So Joe Kelly, who's been growing since on Murray State campus, has harvesting equipment. Whenever people are growing for us in our local area and do not have a sickle bar that's kind of beefed up, or a round baler, which most of them do work, you got to pack it a little bit looser because they're bigger. You cut it down, you let it lay for 3 days with no rain on it one side, flip it over, let it lay for 2 days and bale it up, and then the dove hunting starts.
There you go. So second question, if you don't care, what's your price point on your lumber? Are you competitive with hardwood?
We are directly competitive with American oak flooring.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thomas.
Yes, Representative King and I both have dogs. How does it do with toenails?
So, we use a coating called Bona coating, which is more of an elastic coat. So it does not have the aluminum oxide in the top layer, which scratches white. So I'm not saying it won't scratch, but it won't scratch white. And then there are refresher products that you can take and refresh it rather than having to sand and refinish.
Great, thank you.
We had a meeting. We had a meeting between the Kentucky Department of Agriculture and the Tennessee Department of Agriculture in Bowling Green, and we had a sample. We passed around it, and I was setting up the front, and we was talking about how hard it was, and I kept hearing that clicking noise, and we turned back to the back, and a lady back in the back had her heel, and she was hitting it back there, so it's pretty tough. It survived that test anyway.
That's funny.
I'll make a couple other comments about the product. The attributes that are highly sought after is the hardness. So it's 20% harder than hickory, and that's part of that algorithm that we were talking about. It's actually, the company's name is Fibonacci, because the Fibonacci sequence is the most efficient use of space. That's the carbon sequestration ratio of plants pulling carbon from the air and packing it into their plant. And then it's also the compression ratio that we use for making the hempwood, which we took from how we made the bamboo, how we made the reclaimed woods, and now how we're making the hempwood. So the hardness is way up there. That high density, which is 161% higher than what it was before we pressed it, that also gives it a fire resistant, making it a class 1 fire rating. And those two attributes right there have gotten us spec'd into Bowling Green's public school system. Greenwood is going for a net zero school, and having that carbon negative certification, as well as no VOCs, is starting to be a not well kept secret in the education world, because if you have clean materials in classrooms, and we're starting to sell to tech companies too, you actually have a higher cognitive ability or higher performance of employees and students, because you're not breathing in petroleum based elements in the classroom. Especially now that with problems that are happening with violence at schools, they're having windows that don't fully open. And so they're reverting to cleaner materials that inspire students to actually do something for the environment or perform better at whatever they're doing. So it's half mental, but it's also not having dirty chemicals in your classroom or in your office. And UK has been doing the same thing over there.
Awesome. We have a couple more representatives that would like to make a comment or a question. And Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Our son's house is completely, the flooring is all bamboo, and it's still durable and looks as beautiful today as it did when it was installed. So whatever hand you had in that, thank you very much. My quick question is, there are different varieties of industrial hemp. Can we make this wood with the byproduct, the stalks of industrial hemp used for other purposes, or does it need to be the variety that's grown for fiber? Just curious.
Our preferred is what we call a dual crop. So if the top of the plant is grown for seed, then the bottom of the plant comes to us. It actually reduces the liability or risk for the farmer and for the contractor. And so my friend Chad at Victory Hemp in Louisville, he's one of the larger seed companies that does human food in the U.S. And so whenever we hear of somebody growing hemp as a dual crop in the state of Kentucky, him and I are all over it. He buys the top, I buy the bottom. It works a little bit better as well, because the stalks from a dual crop are like your pinky. The stalks from a dedicated crop are like your thumb, so we don't have to break it open as much.
Yes, you exactly hit on my point. If a farmer growing the crop itself has multiple potential buyers, I think that's going to help improve their bottom line as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome, Representative All.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've got a good partner there with Dr. Brannon. He's a pretty good one. I'm glad you were able to be persistent and snag him to convince him he needed to try this. I've got two quick questions about your business there. What kind of sales growth are you seeing year over year, percentage-wise?
Difficult to handle.
Okay.
So we've doubled or tripled every year we've been in business.
Okay. So that leads to my secondary question. Do you have enough supply?
Every year we get significantly concerned about supply, and somehow God looks out for us, and people grew hemp that they didn't find a buyer. And we end up buying as much from what we call the open market as we do from our actual growers. So being a small business that this is funded with myself and friends and family, we're starting to actually get into some different venture-backed stuff. There's actually a company called Key Horse that's supported by the Kentucky Economic Development that was talking to me yesterday and said, we'd like to back what you're doing. But we plant 20% more, contract 20% more than our break-even number every year, and then kind of rely on the powers that be to bring in any more that we want or need. And it typically comes from outside of the state. Missouri grows significantly more hemp than Kentucky does now because they have incentive programs for people to set up processing mills. So I know of 2 or 3 processing mills over there, and there's a company called Midwest Natural Fiber in Sykeston that grows about 700 to 1,000 acres every year, and I end up buying about 100 acres off of them. There's some guys out of St. Louis called Tiger Fiber. I end up buying some of their stalks. We get some stuff in from Tennessee. We get some stuff in from Indiana. Even Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture sent us 2 trucks this past year, and they sent it to us for free with the agreement that we'll turn it into flooring and send them back the equivalent. So we're maneuvering every way we possibly can, and it is somehow, some way working. The growth sounds impressive of doubling or tripling, and it's meant to sound that way when you say it like that. But if you started at $47,000 the first year, doubling that or tripling that every year, we did do $1.5 million in 2022, which is showing that it's going like that. But out of 8 businesses I've started, this has been the most difficult, and it's even in English.
Thank you.
That says a lot. Representative Tipton, we'll pause for a second. Do you want to record a vote on House Bill 116
Yes, I'll record a yes vote on House Bill 116.
and then House Bill 76?
Yes vote on that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And do you, anybody else question or comment? I want to thank you guys for coming. Dr. Brannon, I have a citation for you. This is the House of Representatives, Commonwealth of Kentucky. It's a citation of appreciation, and I won't read everything, but I'll give you a copy and you can take it home and read it. But if you'll meet me down front, we'll get a picture, and then we'll adjourn. One more. My trusty assistant here reminded me, item number 5 on your agenda, consideration of a referendum administration regulations. There's no vote required on this, and we do have a copy up here if you want to see it. You're welcome to do that. Okay, so we'll get a picture.
If I could, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
yes.
introduce, we had some guests from the Wave Ag Group.
Yes.
That is from far western Kentucky. They probably would come further than anybody up here, so let them introduce themselves just very briefly. So.
Yes, you want to, one of you step up to the mic where everybody can hear you and introduce. I know them, but everybody else doesn't.
My name's Philip Bean. I'm chairman of Wave Ag there at home. Thank you so much for your time.
One of you guys want to come up?
My name is Sarah Drysdale. I'm from Ballard County, and Mr. Stephen Elder is our Wave Ag consultant who does great work for us every time he comes up here.
Yes, thanks. Welcome. Appreciate you guys being here today. It's a long drive, and we're really glad you came. So thanks, Dr. Brannon, for making that happen.
Thank you all.
Meeting adjourned.